Hello, welcome to the video notes for Lesson 9-1, Congruence, Equal in Measure. And this begins on page 1 in your binder. This is the first lesson for this topic of congruence. And here is the lesson target. I can identify transformations. So we're going to learn about translations, reflections, rotations, and dilations. And some of those might sound familiar to you already, so you might have some idea of what they are. Others might be new. The other target is I can plot and label the points of a transformation. Alright, so first thing you see is congruence, and it says figures are said to be congruent, so everybody underline that, if they are equal in measure. Okay, and that's true. I want to add to that. Also, above the word congruent, we're going to do the congruent symbol, which is an equal sign with a squiggly above it. And I always call that like a mustache. So an equal sign with half a mustache. I also want you to add this to it. When it says if they are equal in measure, another way to think of it is side length and angle measures. So side length and angle measures are the same. Now this is not a great definition either because technically we can have congruent figures that don't have sides, you know, something that's rounded, or angles. So you know, but this is another way to think of what congruent is. And most of the figures that we're going to deal with, you will be able to tell if they are congruent or not visually, but we'll also do some measuring or see measurements. Okay, so when we look at this example here, which figures or figure are congruent with Mr. Wump? Now, I know it's kind of a silly name. This is actually a classic figure in geometry. So this one here is congruent with one other. Now it's not this one here because this one is too big. And it's not this one here because this one is too small. This one here is stretched. So it's none of those. Obviously the one that it is congruent to is this one right here. And basically another way to think of congruent is if I were able to actually pick this figure up off the page and drop it on top of this figure, would everything line up? All the angles and corners and sides? And yes, they would, because they are congruent. Okay, over on page 2. So we have some more information. Some more definitions. So we have first a transformation, and that is a change in position, shape, or size of a figure. Position, shape, or size of a figure is a transformation when we transform something. A rigid motion is a transformation that changes only the position of the figure. So circle the word rigid because that's the key to this. And then an image is the results of a transformation of a figure. So we've got 4 different kinds that we're going to talk about. The first one is a translation or a slide. So here's the original figure, original. That makes this one the image. Another type of transformation is a reflection or a flip. When I think of reflection, I think of a mirror. And our mirror is this right here. And our original is flipped over the mirror, and here is our image. Okay. Another type is a rotation. And that is a spin or a turn. So if this is our original figure, this is our image. And then the last type of transformation that we're going to look at is called a dilation. And some of you might say, hey, well, my eyes dilate. And we'll talk about this in math class, what it means to dilate and why and how your eyes dilate. Essentially, they enlarge or shrink the original. So if this is the original, this would be our image. Obviously, this is enlarged. And there is a scale factor that is used for finding the image. So something that we will multiply by. Alright? So that's page 2, talking about all the different transformations. So let's take a look at some examples on page 3. So, decide if each is a transformation is a translation, reflection, rotation, or dilation. We have one example of each. So, let's take a look. The first one, the original is here. The image is here. So when I look at it, it changes its size. So this is a dilation. The next one, we have our girl dancing here. This is the original, and this is the image. So when I'm looking at it, I see that the girl is basically flipped. And what is the math word that's used for flipped? It is reflection. Now we have, looks like an iPod or an MP3 player maybe. And here's the original, here's the image. And it looks like it's basically facing the same way. It was moved from here to here. And the way that it was moved, it was a slide. And the word that we use for slide is translation. Now, I think remembering reflection is an easy one. Translation is a little bit harder, but I think of the S and L in translation, and we also have that in the word slide, so it kind of helps you to link or connect those two things. And then the last one example we have on page 3 is the guitar, and it looks the same, it's just facing a different way. So here's our original, here's our image. The guitar looks like it was turned or rotated, and that's the word we're going to use is for spin, a rotation. So those are the 4 different types of transformations that we are going to look at. So let's go ahead and take a look at another important type of topic to understand. On page 4, transformation on a coordinate plane, so graphing. To identify the image of a point, use prime notation. Now, all prime notation is a symbol. And by the way, we're dealing with corresponding parts. In other words, parts that go together. Prime notation is using a little, it looks like an apostrophe. The image of point A is A prime. So we say this A prime. is what we say when we see this. So here's the original figure. Here's the image. By the way, this is a translation because it was a slide, moved from here to here. A becomes A prime. This is the image. C, C prime. B, B prime. All right. So this is the corresponding point to A. This point corresponds to C. This point corresponds to B. All right? Okay, so let's take a look at some examples below so we really understand it. Label which figure is the original and which is the image of the original. What transformation is performed. Now, your copy looks different than mine, part because mine has colors on it and yours doesn't. So one of the things you can't see in yours is that this image here has all these little prime marks. So this is the image and this is the original. And to go from the original to the image, this is a slide. All I'm doing is moving all these corresponding points up a certain number of spaces, and we'll talk about that later. So this is a translation. The next one, here is the image, because these are all labeled with primes. X prime, G prime, F prime. So this is the image. This is the original. So how do we get from the original to the image? This is a reflection. It's a flip. And then the last one, so you can see the image here is in red, and we've got our little prime mark. So we've got Q, HJQ, HJQ down here. This is the original. And then in the image, H prime, J prime, and Q prime. And how do we get from here to here? Well, it might look like a flip, but actually it's a turn or a spin, or what's technically known as a rotation. Alright, so we have one more example to do over on page 5. We are almost done. Alright, page 5. Plot the points for the image of the figure. Name the transformation. Don't forget to label your image with primes. So, here we have a picture of BAT, bat. So now we have B prime, A prime, and T prime, and here are the points. So negative 5, 2. So I go over 5, up 2, put a point. I'll label it in a minute once I see where the other points are going. A prime is, I go over 5, up 8, and there's that one. And then T prime is 0, 2, that's here. Alright, so this is B prime, A prime, T prime. And you should certainly use a straight tool, straight edge or a ruler, as I am using, to make my lines nice and perfectly straight. And hopefully you can tell by looking at it that this is a flip or a reflection. Okay, we have one more example below, and I'm actually going to have you finish this on your own. Actually, let me clear the screen, move it down for you. But I'm going to help you a little bit. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a table. The original. And the image here is TEAM. So whenever it spells something, I always try to go in order, team. I'm actually going to make a double T chart here. And over here I'm going to have T, E, A, and M. And up here I have X and I have Y. So T is at the point negative 8, 9. E is at the point negative 8, 5. A is at negative 4, 5, and M is at negative 4, 9. Looks like a square, I believe it is. Alright, so Your job is to come up with an image, and you're going to make another double T-chart. Now, whatever is easier for you, so T prime, E prime, A prime, and M prime. So I'm going to put a star here. Your job is to come up with an image and then tell what the transformation is. So the image has to be somewhere else on the grid, and it's either going to be a rotation, which is a hard one to do, a translation, a reflection, or translation, reflection, rotation, or dilation. Actually, don't do a dilation. That one would be harder. But if you can, great. If not, and then after you plot your image, write down your points. So this might be tricky for some of you. Do the best you can. Good luck, and we'll see you in math.